This is a makeup tutorial for how to do a wound slash cut slash tear, whatever you want to call it. First thing you're going to need is some liquid latex. Get this at any Halloween store or craft store. It's probably the most expensive thing out of the entire build. And this is just going to be a dish. It's just a Tupperware lid that I use for pouring my liquid latex into so it don't make a mess. And as you can see, it's kind of thick. So what you want to do is take some water and pour a slight amount into the dish. This will thin the liquid latex down so that it can be more invisible on your skin. Mix it up. Once it's mixed up, you can test the consistency of it by rubbing it on your hand. The more wet it feels, the better it is for applying thinly. Now decide where you want to put your cut and look sexy while doing it. Alright, after you've decided where you want to put it, put a small amount of liquid latex on your finger and begin to apply it to the skin, smoothing it out as you go, applying over the entire area, slightly more than where you're actually going to be putting it. And as with all wounds that are looking like a tear or a cut, you want to extend at least one side of it so that it comes to a point as if it were done in a slashing motion. But again, it's completely up to you however you want to do it, but realistic is always better in my opinion. And make sure you let it dry completely before moving on to the next step. The next step is to take a slight amount of liquid latex on your finger again, applying over the same area, not covering quite as much as you did before, but still roughly the same area. Again, go for thin consistency. Try to pat it down a little bit, just trying to merge it into your skin so it looks a little more like your skin has actually been flayed up. The next step, you can do this in one of two ways. This is toilet paper. All you have to do is tear off little pieces and put it on where you would want the outline of your cut to be. This simply acts as parts of your skin that has been flayed or cut open, as it would swell and create depth if it were a real cut. So this toilet paper does perfectly that. It blends down to your skin easily and it creates a deep cut effect. The more toilet paper you add, the deeper the cut will look, but then again, if you add too much, you start to get to the point of where it might look a little unrealistic. And in this particular wound that I was doing, I was going for more of a tear rather than a clean cut. Just depends on what kind of look you're going for. I always like to kind of have a backstory behind some of the things that I do. This one particularly did not have that great of a backstory other than just the thought of getting a chunk of your face ripped open. Once again, when applying liquid latex, you want to make sure that the area is completely dry before you move on to the next step, because it will cause your liquid latex to spread into areas that you don't really want it in. The next step is to cut the liquid latex from your skin. You must be very careful here. I'm using a Swiss Army knife with the little scissor attachment on it, and I just barely get the point under the liquid latex and just kind of pull it up off my skin, pulling away from the skin so that it's slicing it open. And what this does is it makes the next step look more realistic, and it gives you more of a depth feel to it, even looking as if there's more than one layer of skin in some areas. But this part is still completely up to you. You don't necessarily have to do this using the toilet paper as a to make it look like it was flayed open. So this just adds depth, but not necessary. And as you can see, I didn't wait long enough to do the cutting and smeared some latex around. In the next step, we're going to take just a relatively, that was a Swiss Army knife. More drying, yay. The next step of this is to take some skin colored cream makeup with your fingertip or an applicator brush, whichever you prefer. You want to gently pat it on to the areas around the cut. This helps blend it to your skin a bit better. Most of this will be covered by makeup later on, but this will help to give it a more realistic effect and get rid of some of that white color from the toilet paper and latex. After you feel like you've covered it enough, take a small brush, relatively small, and now you're going to take black and red grease paint. You're going to take the black first and dab it in some of the deeper areas of the wound. Once again, this will just give it more depth, and since we cut the latex away from the skin, the grease paint will actually show up more glossy so that it actually looks more like a wet, open wound on the inside of it and not on the latex on the outside. And now you take the red while still mixing it with some black so that it will give it a darker red, a more deep blood kind of color. And you start to paint on the inside of the cut just to make it look as if there is muscle or blood or whatever behind it. This particular cut, I did not use fake blood. When you add fake blood, it makes things look really realistic and gross, but I wanted to simply show you the best way to go about doing a fake cut without using fake blood. Now you take some brown grease paint, and once again, using your finger, just dab it along the outsides of the cut to give it a more raised up look and to just make the edges of the skin look as though they've been torn and slightly aged, or just giving it more of a raised effect, and blending it to your skin more in the process, just getting rid of some of the colors. After you've finished with that, you want to take your red grease paint again and a very porous sponge. You can do this with a toothbrush even if you need to, just something that's going to give it a stippled effect, as if blood almost was splattered across it, but very, very finely. This effect that I use more so just adds the kind of like an aging effect to the wound, so that it looks like it's not like fresh. It looks like it's older and a little more worn down. And here you can also use this to bring it down as if just the blood was pouring out of it and went down your neck some more, so it doesn't look like it's dried up or healed over already. Still festering a bit. And now you take yellow. This is more of the festering effect, and you can just use the same sponge or stippling brush, whichever you're using, to add yellow speckles to it. This will make the skin look as though it is aging and decaying, or just starting to acquire some kind of disease and get infected. Now you can take your red grease paint again and get in there and make it look more wet, more red, more bloody. Now you want to just take your finger and kind of pat all the areas together just to make it look more spread out and opaque. And now you've got a nice cut on the side of your face. You're ready to go out there and look like you got messed up. Trick or treat.